Shalom Chaverim, welcome friends. The name of this week's Torah portion is Korach. Now in English we usually say Korah, but the Hebrew name is Korach, and I'll be using that name throughout this video. Korach is found in Numbers 16 through 18. And as I was studying this passage this past week, God impressed upon my heart one central theme, the theme of character, the theme of givers and takers. Which one are we, a giver or a taker? Numbers 16:1, the first two words in this passage are Vayikach Korach, and Korach took. What did Korach take? We don't know exactly, because the text has no object to the verb. However, from the context, we can figure it out. Korach took 250 men to himself. They came before Moses and opposed Moses and challenged his authority and said that all the people are equal and all the people are holy, basically diminishing Moses' position and authority. Korach wanted to take Moses' position. Korach also desired the priesthood of Aaron, as we see in verse 10 of chapter 16. Korach was a taker. He wanted to take men to himself. He wanted to take Moses' position, and he wanted to take Aaron's position. Moses' response to Korach was to fall on his face. Moses fell on his face and said to Korach and his men, "You have gone too far, you sons of Levi." And he told them that on the next day, on tomorrow, they will find out who is holy and whom God has chosen. Moses instructed them, Korach and his men, to bring censers, to put fire and incense in them, and to come to the tent of meeting. They did just that. Korach and his band of 250 men came with censers, with the whole congregation of Israel, and stood before the tent of meeting. God showed up. God told Moses and Aaron to separate themselves from the whole community, because God wanted to destroy the whole community. But Moses said, "God, will you destroy the whole community for one man's sin?" God changed his mind. Then Moses said, to the whole congregation, if these men die a natural death, then God has not sent Moses. However, if God does an entirely new thing, he actually says if God creates a new creation, and the ground opens up and swallows these men alive into Sheol, then these men are not just spurning Moses, they're spurning the Lord. And immediately after Moses finished speaking these words, the ground opened up its mouth, swallowed these people alive. Fire came out, consumed the 250 men. And Korah's rebellion was crushed. These men and everyone who identified with Korah were destroyed. Now immediately after this incident, the community of Israel, the congregation of Israel, grumbled against Moses and Aaron. God sent a plague amongst the people and wanted to destroy them. Moses fell on his face and instructed Aaron to go with a censer and incense and to make atonement for the people. And Aaron did just that. 3 times in this chapter, Moses falls on his face for the sake of God's glory, for the sake of the people. Twice he stood up for the sake of the people, even when they were grumbling against him directly. Moses was a giver. Moses knew how to give of himself for the sake of others. Who are we? Are we givers or are we takers? Now it's interesting that Korach is only mentioned once in the New Testament, and that is found in the book of Jude. Jude basically writes to the believers of his time to warn them against ungodly and rebellious men. And in verse 11, he explains what these men are like. He says, "Woe to them, for they have gone the way of Cain, and for pay they have rushed headlong into the error of Balaam, and perished in the rebellion of Korach." Jude explains that rebellious and ungodly men are basically following the ways of Cain, Balaam, and Korach. These men who were takers. and ended their lives in destruction. Jude later explains that these people, anyone who's characterized as a rebellious, ungodly person, in Jude 16, these are grumblers, finding fault, following after their own lusts. They speak arrogantly, flattering people for the sake of gaining advantage. This is the goal of a taker. Are we givers or are we takers? Let's learn a lesson from Korach and Moses. Let us be givers. Shabbat Shalom.